Good morning, King's House. How is everyone today? Hey, I'm so glad that you're here. We are so honored and so blessed to have you here this morning. Guys, so excited about this upcoming series called Say So. We're going to hear some incredible stories and have some just incredible testimonies of what God has done and is currently doing in the lives of people right here at the King's House, guys. I'm just so excited about it. The story we're going to hear this morning is one that is very near and dear to my heart personally. I have had the privilege of having a front row seat to this particular story for 17 years now. So guys, I am just so excited about it today. Psalms 107 verse 2 says this: "Let the redeemed of the Lord say so." Man, I don't know about anybody else in this room this morning, but I needed some Jesus when he found me. Do I have a witness? And I said last week, I am living proof of what the mercies of God can do. And as we hear this story and this incredible testimony this morning, guys, I am just praying, believing that your faith is going to be stirred, man, that your faith is going to be activated, that you're going to be challenged to hold on to and fight for those dreams and fight for those promises, because if God can do it for someone else, he can do it for you too. Do you believe that this morning, King's House, man? So yeah, if you would, just open up your heart this morning and just say, God, I am ready to receive what you have for me this morning. Do you love Jesus in this house? All right, sound guys, without further ado, let's roll that beautiful bean footage.
Hi, my name is Brandon Shaw, and this is my wife, Amy.
And this is our story. We met at youth camp in Seminole years and years ago, probably 20 years or so. And then when I was in college at Family of Faith, I started attending church with Brandon at Emmanuel Fellowship, where Pastor Danny and Pastor Mark are from. And I ended up in the same circle of friends that Brandon was in. One evening during a church service, it wasn't like an audible thing, but it was hey, you look up. And I looked up and I saw Brandon.
Amy kept coming over about every weekend and everything, and started liking football and wanting to watch sports with me and stuff like that. So I was thinking, this is kind of interesting here, because I like to watch sports, especially OU football. So I started thinking about it and everything and praying about it, of course. And I just, at one moment, I'm just like, I think she might be the one.
We got married in July of 2004, so this year was 17 years. And it was at that point, about 6 months into our marriage, that we started talking about having kids. And about month 6, we decided to go ahead and start trying, but nothing was happening for us. And so Brandon finally said, why don't you just go see a doctor, and if nothing's wrong and we just have to wait, then we have to wait. But if there is something wrong, let's go ahead and get it fixed, whether it's you or it's me or it's a combination or whatever it may be. And so at that point, I sought out the first doctor. I sought out the first doctor just to see what was going on, because up to this point we had no idea what the end result was going to be. We just knew that we wanted to be young enough to run around with our kids and to be able to play with them. We weren't interested in being older parents. God had other plans. But so going and seeing that very first doctor, I was nervous and I was scared, but I was also really excited about the possibilities of getting, to have a baby of my own. And I go in there and they check me, and they find out that I have two uteri, or a double uterus. And it's not that it's like really rare, but it's rare enough that they wanted to send me to a specialist. And the specialist was very difficult to get into, so we had to wait some time. But in the meantime, in between there, the first doctor that we spoke to said, don't ever get your hopes up because you're never going to have children. This is just a means to an end so that I've done everything that I'm supposed to do. And of course I'm crushed. I mean, who wouldn't be? They're finding out that they can't have kids, something that, you know, you've always dreamt about. I mean, I grew up in a family of 5, and then all of my aunts and uncles have, you know, gobs of children, and both my parents are from large families, and so it was really difficult because as Brandon and I were talking about having kids, we wanted a big family. We wanted 4 kids. We wanted to be involved in everything. We wanted to, you know, conquer the world and do all of those things. But at that moment, I felt completely crushed. I felt that my world was closing in around me. That I wasn't going to get to do the one thing my heart wanted to do, and that was to be a mom. I remember sitting in the car and just crying. I remember thinking again that the world was closing in on me and my family, and that it was never going to get to happen. She said that she would do everything in her power to help us have a baby. And she did. She did everything in her power to help us. And in that moment, my hope, my faith, everything just seemed to come back. I remember coming back from Kansas, because at that point we lived here in McAlester. And I remember my faith being renewed. But I didn't want to get my hopes up so high that I ended up falling again. And so it was like I was teetering in that spot between faith and hope and demise, because that's honestly the way I felt. And so I did everything that Dr. Sullivan told me to do. I ate the right things. I exercised the way she told me to do. You know, I did everything that I could possibly do to get myself ready to have the baby. And again, loss after loss, and heartache after heartache. And finally, I just said, I'm done.
Well, of course, we all wanted to get pregnant and everything, and I mean, that was we wanted to have kids and everything. So at first, I was always really excited. I was like, yeah, we're pregnant and everything, and then boom, a miscarriage would come. And after a while, after this kept going on, the cycle, I just gave up. I'm like, every time she say, oh, I'm pregnant, I'd be like, nah, no, you're not. Or, nah, it's going to be another miscarriage. I mean, of course you lose hope and faith and everything, and you're just like, I don't believe this anymore, and I'm not going to get happy by no means, because every time it happens, she has a miscarriage. So after then, I was just pretty much giving up. I was just like, I don't have faith in this no more. I wasn't giving up in the Lord. I was just like, so anytime anything along getting pregnant would come up, I would just be like, eh. And then Amy would be like, why are you so mad? And everything's like, I'm not mad. I just don't want to get all excited, and boom, there it goes again.
So we had more or less given up on our miracle of ever having a kid, let alone 4, until we were on our anniversary trip, and I think it was our 10th or 11th anniversary, and we get a phone call from a family friend asking if we would be interested in adoption. It was I don't know, it was a bit of a roller coaster because we found out that the birth mother was 6 months pregnant. So if we were going to do this, then we had to get in and do the paperwork ASAP. And my mom and I drive up to the restaurant where we were going to meet, and we get out and go into the restaurant, and I am just a ball of nerves. Not really sure what God is doing, if he's doing anything, or if this is my flesh, because we just wanted to have kids so bad, if I'm forcing a miracle. And I walk in with my mom, and this 6 month, I mean, she was a big 6 month pregnant, runs across the restaurant and essentially jumps on top of me, and then lets go and grabs my hands, puts them on her stomach, and says, "Meet your son!" And I'm like, oh my goodness, like, I'm freaking out, like, are you crazy? Morning of the planned C-section, she calls me before we even go in, and she's like, "How are you doing this morning?" I'm like, "I'm doing great, I'm fixing my hair." And I said, "How are you feeling?" She goes, "I'm ready to get this child out of me." And I said, "Well, that's good." And I said, "Are you about ready to go to the hospital?" And she says, "Yeah, I just wanted to make sure to tell you I'm not backing out." Which honestly, I needed to hear those words. I'm not backing out. And even though we were still scared, and there's so many emotions, I had a little bit more peace because she's not backing out. And I kept repeating that to myself, almost as like a mantra or something like that. It was like, she's not backing out. She's not backing out. We're gonna get our baby out of this. He's gonna be our baby. And through everything, it was one of the most incredible experiences. I got to wear the daddy suit and be in there with her. I watched them do the C-section, and then they tied her tubes, and then I'm walking over to follow Sullivan, and they throw their hands up and say, "You can't come any closer." And so I just stop and I freeze, and I'm like, "What's wrong?" And one of the nurses could see the fear on my face, and she said, "He's not breathing." There's just no way that God would bring us this far, and that he would finally give us the desire of our heart, and then all of those desires and the promises fall. And then suddenly I heard him crying, and I'm like, oh my goodness, thank you, Jesus. Like, I'm over there just praying, interceding, going, there's just, of course, there's just no way. Come on, God, just stir my faith, do whatever you got to do. We can't live through this. I just don't know how we're going to go through this one more time. And he was fine. It's just amazing, the miracle that is Sullivan. And he's about to be 6 years old. He's in kindergarten. The kid he can sound out words. He's great at math. He runs all the time,
basketball.
Plays sports. He was the light that we needed, the spark that we were missing. And it was as if my faith was 100% restored.
He's a light everywhere he goes. I mean,
He gives the best hugs.
Yeah.
Two months later, our world came crumbling down. I left my job. I wasn't feeling great. Things just kind of were one thing right after the other. I don't even know how to completely describe how I felt at the moment other than crushed. I felt like I was before the firing squad and I was about to get the last round. I go in, they do all the panels, they draw a ton of blood, and then my doctor says, go home and lay down. I don't want you doing anything else today. I want you to go and lay down. And I said, you don't have to tell me again. I'm going home. I'm going to lay down. I called Brandon on the way home just to let him know that they're going to call me with any of the results if they come back today. If not, it'll be tomorrow. And that I was going home to rest because that's what I've been told to do. Well, I'm laying down in bed. It's probably 45 minutes to an hour later, and my phone rings, and it's my doctor's office. And I'm thinking, well, that was really fast. And so I pick up the phone and I'm like, hello, and the doctor goes, Amy, I need you to come in and see me right now. I go in there and they're like, sit down. I'm like, okay, so I'm about to get the worst news of my life. They're already telling me to sit down. So I sit down, and we're in COVID, so we both have masks on, and she takes her mask off for the first time. Like, this is the first time I've ever seen my doctor's face. And she takes her mask off and she says, I need you to see my face when I tell you this. And I said, just tell me, I already know I'm dying. And she's like, what are you talking about? She's like, anemic, yes, that's why you feel horrible. And we need to get you in for a blood transfusion today. But you're pregnant. And I'm like, shut up. Honest, I said shut up and put my finger up. I was like, shut up. And she's like, no, I'm being straight serious with you. You are pregnant. Next day, I'm laying down for my ultrasound, and the ultrasound tech says, now why are you here? And I said, well, they're telling me I'm pregnant, or there's a tumor because there's some sort of heartbeat. And she's like, hang on, I have to go get another order. I can't say anything to you. I'm thinking, oh great. Like it must be a tumor, maybe it's not a baby. Of course my mind goes to the very workplace because of everything we've gone through. And the lady comes back, or the tech comes back, and she goes, okay, I have permission to tell you what's going on. And we're like, what? She's like, oh, you're not just pregnant, you're big pregnant. And I'm like, what are you talking about? She says, you're not 6 to 8 weeks pregnant, you're like 25, 27 weeks pregnant. And I'm like, wait, doing the math in my head, I'm like, you're telling me I'm 5 months pregnant? I wear 00 pants. Like, there's no way I'm pregnant. And she's like, no, look. And she turns the screen and you see a spine and you see like features, the baby's features. So we had a very short pregnancy. Ended up being as long as the process of getting Sullivan. It was just a few months and then we were having a baby. So I had to switch doctors midstream because we found out that McAllister didn't have a NICU, and that because I was such a high risk patient, and that because of all of that there was going to be there were possibilities of complications for our baby. And so we ended up getting a doctor in Tulsa that actually had his office in the same hospital that we were going to be at, St. John's. And so the day that I went to see my doctor for the very first time, my specialist, I ended up in the emergency room at St. John's. My blood pressure spiked through the roof. It was like 184 over 130 something. They're like, get here now. You could stroke at any moment and lose the baby. They checked me immediately and they're like, you're going to be having this baby rather soon. And so I'm like, oh, okay, you realize how early we are, right? And they're like, yes, but she's gonna be okay. It's better for her and better for you to get her out. So they admitted me, and I ended up completely losing my vision before being rushed down the hallway to have Emory Lynn. When they started dressing me and giving me my spinal, I could still see, but everything was starting to get really, really dark, almost completely black. And then I'm like, my head is killing me and I cannot see. And I remember the first thing that I see when they pulled Emory Lynn out of my stomach, and it was as though someone flipped on the light. We were in the NICU for a total of 3 weeks, and we fast forward and we're home for 2 months now. And she is wonderful. She's healthy. She has grown over 3 pounds and over 4 inches. When she was first born, her foot was as long as the first part of my finger. Now her foot is now twice the size that it was originally. So she has grown so much. She's the size of a typical newborn baby now. She was weighed today at 7 pounds 4 ounces and 20 inches long. So for us, she seems huge, but for everybody else, she seems small. And so it's been interesting to see the reactions that people have to our family. And the number one question has been, well, Sullivan, how's it like being a big brother? And he just ducks his head and says, I got what I prayed for.
Don't give up. I mean, when you think there's no way that things can happen or things are possible, is don't give up. Have faith in God. I mean, because you just heard our story here and what God has done through us. I mean, God can do anything. A lot of people like say, "Oh, God took my loved one." I mean, I just can't believe in God because I just lost my husband or my dad or my grandparents and everything. How could God do that? I mean, God can do anything, and just don't give up on Him. I mean, God has been awesome with me and Amy. Now we have 2 awesome, wonderful, lovable kids, Sullivan and Emory, and God is faithful.
I just remember every time that there's always someone that has it a whole lot worse than we do, and that we can be so self-centered and think that the world revolves around us, and when it really revolves around God. And if we can remember that, then all things are possible when there is no more room to hope.
King's House, will you please get up on your feet, get ready to give God some praise as we welcome to the stage Brandon, Amy, Sullivan, and Emory Lynn. Come on, give him some praise, King's House. Oh, I'm an emotional wreck after that. My gosh. 17 years, over 20 miscarriages, and it's not every day that you get to see 2 miracles on stage at the same time as King's House. I don't know what else to say this morning other than God is just beyond faithful and beyond good, and I love you guys so much. I got to hold Emory while we were filming this video, and the whole time she just smiled at me, and I cried and I sang, and I'm glad no one else was around because it just, oh God. But God is so good, so faithful. If He can do miracles for these guys, He can do it for you too, King's House. He can. If you would this morning, would you just reach your hands out towards these guys? I just want to pray a blessing over this family. Oh, Lord, I love you so much, God. I thank you for Brandon and Amy, for Sullivan, for Emery, for the miracle that is their family. God, I thank you for the friendship that you've given me with this family for 30 years. God, I'm just so thankful. God, I've seen every valley. I've seen every dry place and every test and every disappointment. But God, I'm so thankful that weeping may endure for a night season, God, but your joy comes in the morning. So God, we just command a blessing over this family, God, an unprecedented blessing, that your blessing, that your hand of favor would just be over this family, would rest on this family. Everything they touch, everything they place their hands to, every place at their footsteps, God, I just ask that it would be blessed, that it would be led by you. God, I thank you today that this is just the beginning of promises being fulfilled, of dreams coming true in their life, God, and I thank you for giving us the divine privilege to be a part of it and to see the work that you're doing in their life. God bless them in Jesus' name, everybody says. I love you guys so much. Give God some praise one more time, King's House. Take a seat really briefly, if you will, as the praise team comes back this morning. I don't have much to say after that, but I know that was a million times better than listening to me preach. I know that for sure. Nothing from Johnny or Rick. Man, that was just a slow ball down the middle, and they didn't even. I said that was better than listening to me preach, Johnny. Something God just laid on my heart really briefly this morning, King's House, is the reality that even when you can't see it, He's still working. Even when you don't feel it, He's still working. I will never forget that season back in November. It's crazy. It's been almost a year ago. I was highly concerned for my friends. Brandon's been my friend for 30 years. Amy's been my friend for over 20 years. Highly concerned for them as they were going through probably the darkest, most difficult season in their life, when it seemed like everything was falling apart, where their reputation and their character was being attacked. And I mean, just a horribly difficult season, man. I prayed for them. I called them. I checked on them. But what I couldn't see is that what seemed like the most difficult, trying, testful season of their life was actually a season where God was about to bring unprecedented amounts of blessing and answers to prayer and fulfillment of promises in their life. I couldn't see it working, but even though I couldn't see it, King's House, God was still working in an incredible way in their life. And I know that some of us are going through difficult, dark, trying seasons as a whole, like all across this world. We're going through difficulties. You're probably like me in the sense that like my day begins in the morning. Right, I mean, unless you're working nights. When the sun comes up, I'm up. And when the sun goes down, I'm done for the day. And I'm in bed, so don't call me after about 9:30. I won't answer. But that's how we view things. Things start in the morning when the sun's up, and things end at night when the sun goes down. That's how our society operates. But if you look in the first couple of chapters of Genesis, it said, God said, let there be light. Light happens. God separated the land from the water. Boom, He commanded it happen. But then the scripture says something very unique. Then there was evening, and then there was morning, the first day. And God created all the animals, and He created all the fish, and then there was evening, and then there was morning, the second day, the third day. Like, God, what is this? This is so backwards. My day starts in the morning time, but you say, then there was evening, then there was morning, and you call that a day. Well, how is that relevant for us today, Pastor Mark? Let me tell you how that's relevant, because when you find yourself in those dark, lonely, desolate, disappointed, trying seasons of your life where you're battling depression and loneliness and it feels like everything in your life is going completely wrong, when it's so dark outside and you feel like God's forgotten about me and He doesn't hear my prayers, friends, nothing could be further from the truth, because when it's the darkest time of night, you need to know that God is just getting started. Come on, King's House, man. When night comes, it's not the end of something. When night comes, it's just the beginning of what God is doing in your life. I believe that it's nighttime for some of you in this room, man, but I see the sun beginning to rise on the horizon in your life. Joseph was an unprecedented dreamer. You can read about him in the book of Genesis. He dreamed big dreams. He dreamed God-sized dreams. He dreamed God-given dreams. It wasn't just things that he just sat around and thought up, like, boy, that would be neat. No, these were things that God gave him, and he believed them, and he shared those dreams with other people. But when he shared those dreams with other people, all hell broke out in this man's life. And he entered the most difficult, dark, trying season for 13 years. Joseph was hated by his family. Joseph was betrayed by his brother. He was thrown in the pit. He was sold into slavery. And because he was a man of integrity and because he was a man of character, he found himself thrown into prison for over 2 years. I promise you that during that 13-year period, there was plenty of times where that little voice whispered in his ear, man, isn't God faithful, Joseph? Wow. Isn't God good? Isn't it wonderful that God placed dreams in your heart? Isn't it wonderful that you're so favored by God when everything in your life is falling apart? I promise you, he was a human being just like you and I. I promise you there were days, there were moments when he was so disappointed, so disillusioned, so confused, so frustrated, so angry. I promise he experienced those things just like we do, because we live in this space that exists between God giving you a promise, God giving you a dream, and you stepping into that dream and that promise. There is this space that exists between there. I wish those two things were simultaneous, like God said it, boom, it's happening. That's just not the case very often, King's House. So we live in this tension. We live in this limbo between what God promised and what our current reality is. It's in those spaces that we deal with frustrations and loneliness and disappointment. It's so easy to give up on those dreams. Everything in you screaming up just to give up and move on. But I want you to know something, King's House. Everything in your life can change in one divine moment, in one instant. Joseph went from being in the prison and into the palace in one moment. In one day, everything changed. 1 minute he's a prisoner, the next minute he is stepping into the fullness of those promises. He is stepping into the fullness of those dreams. Your life can change in a moment. Listen, God was not trying to punish Joseph. I'm sure it felt like, God, where are you? What have I done? God wasn't trying to punish Joseph. God was positioning Joseph to receive the promise that he had been praying for. Listen, I was very open and honest with you last week. I know what disappointment is. I know what failure is. I know what depression is. I get it. And we all face those times in our life where God seems so far away, where it feels like everything that God is saying, the opposite is happening. I understand. I believe some of you are in that place this morning. Your heart's getting so cold. It's so hard to hold on to those promises. It's so hard to hold on to those dreams. You might even ask yourself questions like, God, what have I done to deserve this? Why have you forgotten about me? Why have you abandoned me? God, friends, I want you to know this morning that God is not punishing you this morning. I want to say it from the mountaintops today. He's not punishing you this morning. He is positioning you this morning to receive the promise that you have been praying for and praying for. Because even though you may not see it this morning, even though you may not feel this morning, my God is still at work, man. And I believe some of those promises and some of those dreams that you've been holding on to and praying for years and years and years, I'm here to prophesy to you this morning that I believe that breakthrough is coming in your lives. I believe that unprecedented blessings are coming to your life. I believe this is a season you're going to step into those dreams, step into those promises, see those things come to pass in your life, man. Don't give up, King's House, because there is a blessing on the way to you this morning. Do you believe that, church? Would you stand with me this morning? I'm going to ask the prayer team to come this morning as we worship. And I just want to give an invitation today. If that's you this morning, you say, Pastor Mark, I've been in a dark place. I've been in a night season. Pastor Mark, I've been holding on to dreams. I've been holding on to promises. I've been praying for year after year after year after year. I'm seeing no results. I'm so tired. I'm ready to give up. Some of you believing for your marriage. Some of you believing for your finances. Some of you believing for your future. Some of you have sons and daughters and grandkids who have walked away from the Lord. You've been praying, you believing. But man, if you just need a dose of faith this morning, if you want to stand in faith and believing in prayer with somebody this morning, I just invite you that as we worship today, come and let this prayer team pray with you today. We are standing in faith. Hey, I still serve a God who does miracles. Are you with me, King's House, man? I'm telling you, the God I serve still does miracles. Whatever your need is this morning, I just invite you to come as this prayer team plays. Let's worship God together, King's House. Come on.
Moving in our midst, I worship you. I worship you. You are here, working in this place. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, moving in our midst. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, working in this place.
Come on, King's
I
House.
worship you. I worship you.
Come on, King's House. Sing it out with us.
You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are.
I believe it this morning, Jesus. You are.
Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are here, touching every heart. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, healing every heart. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, turning lives around. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, mending every heart. I worship you. I worship you. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. 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 Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. Never stop, you never stop working. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. Never stop, you never stop working. You never stop, you never stop working. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. Never stop working. Never stop working. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. Never stop, you never stop working. Never stop, yes. Waymaker, miracle worker,
is who you are. That 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 is who. Come on, do you love him this morning, King's House? Aren't you thankful we serve such a great God? That is who you are. That is who you are. That is who you are. That is who. Come on, sing this with me. Even when I don't see. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop, you never stop working. You never stop. Come on, like you mean it this morning. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop, you never stop working. Come on, lift it up, church. Hey, hey, hey. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop working. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. Never stop working. One last time. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop. Oh, even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. Thank you, my Jesus. We love you so much. You are such a great God. God, we can't thank you enough. We can't praise you enough, God, for all of your goodness, for all of your faithfulness, for all of your kindness, God, for all of your mercies, God, for all of your grace, Jesus, for all of your love, God. We can't even imagine where we would be if it wasn't for you, Jesus. God, we didn't find you, Lord. You came looking for us and you reached way down, God, and you found us. God, I am so eternally grateful that I serve such a good Father. He's not a man that he should lie. God, you are faithful to your word. You are faithful to your promises. And God, we're going to be so careful today to give you all the praise and give you all the glory because you are the only one who deserves it. In Jesus' name, everyone said. All right, King's House, come on, one more time. Give him some praise this morning. So good. So good. Well, even on a morning where we have so much incredibly positive news, I do have one sad bit of news for you today, King's House. This is going to be the last Sunday that our dear friends Ricky and Josie Miranda are going to be with us. They are moving to Fort Smith, and guys, I just can't tell you how much I love you guys, how much I appreciate you guys. I mean, guys, you talk about being faithful to give, faithful to serve, faithful to step in and do anything and everything that the King's House needs. Irreplaceable people, and I just want to pray a blessing over them as they step into the next things that God has for them. And before I do so, I just want you to know I've been pastor for almost 3 years, and every single Sunday for 3 years, Ricky has threatened me. He's threatened me with, Pastor Mark, if you don't get a soft serve ice cream machine at the King's House, I'm leaving the church. Well, Ricky, it took me 3 years. But as you walk out the doors this morning, there is an ice cream party waiting just for you guys. So I'm just going to ask these guys if they would just hang out over by the fireplace. Guys, love on them. Hey, I hope that we all understand that just because God moves us here or God moves us there, we are always going to be part of this family. You know what I'm saying? Seasons come, seasons go. People leave this church and go to other churches. I mean, all sorts of things happen. I want you to know I'm pastoring a church. I'm not leading a gang. We're not in rival gangs. I mean, it just baffles me how sometimes people leave the church and like they avoid me at Walmart. Like, goodness, I mean, We love you guys. You're always going to be part of this King's House family. Would you reach your hands towards these guys this morning? As we just, Lord, I love you. I thank you so much for this family, for what they have meant to me as an individual. Lord, they have stuck through some difficult times at this church. And they have been faithful to give and faithful to serve and faithful to love. And God, as this door closes and you open up a new door into their future, God, I thank you that they are stepping into an unprecedented blessing in their life. God, you're not going to just bless them financially. God, I think you're going to provide a church. You're going to provide a church family who's going to love them and support them. God, I thank you that you're going to begin to use them in ways they never thought possible, God, because you have incredible plans and purposes for Ricky and Josie and the girls. So God, I just thank you for them today, God. I just ask that you would bless them. In Jesus' name, everybody says, I love you so much, King's House. Have an amazing week. See you at home group Wednesday, 7 o'clock.